Hi, good afternoon. Dr. Jen coming live. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you are on, make sure to comment and share this with anybody that you think may find it useful. I'm going to talk about our metabolism and how we can support it. There is so much information out there these days and a lot of emphasis on medications. We have all these amazing new medications, but they aren't applicable in all cases. And we actually have amazing capacity to heal when supported properly. So I'm Dr. Jen. I'm Healthy Living with Dr. Jen is my practice. I'm a lifestyle medicine doctor, a pediatrician, and all-around wellness advocate. And I break down medical principles and make lifestyle medicine simple and applicable to everyday life. I particularly am passionate about this topic of metabolism because so much of our health and our longevity is tied to how our body uses energy, which is metabolism. And particularly type 2 diabetes is on the rise. Pre-diabetes is everywhere. Insulin resistance is on the rise in general. And as you know, adults in this busy, high intensity environment that we live in here in the United States, particularly, these things are this high intensity actually worsens our risk for um, diabetes, type 2 diabetes, and other chronic diseases as well. And it all comes down to our metabolism. And, current trends would have you believe that the only way to manage it is to follow some really strict regimen or a really intense workout or a high protein diet or medication. But there is so much more that we can do that can give us that control. And these intense regimens actually end up causing more harm in the long run. So I want to talk a little bit about that to get started. So often we are told to follow a low carb diet, to follow high intensity workouts, to consume high protein. And these things, number one, when you're following a diet, the results are often in the short term, they can be great. But the problem is, how do you continue that for the long term? And that is really the key, right, to longevity and to health in overall is having a regimen, having a lifestyle that you can live every single day. And that is really the key. And these diets, actually, many times we find that not only are we not able to maintain them for the long term, but when the diet ends, we actually rebound to worse than we were before the diet. And that over time can have a more and more negative effect on our overall health, increased inflammation, increased insulin resistance, and increasing problems for our health for the long term. So I thought I would talk about what am I talking about when I'm talking about metabolism? So when we're talking about metabolism, it's how our body uses energy, as I mentioned in the beginning. And one of the key things is insulin, right? Insulin is what our body uses to help the glucose get into the cell, which is great, right? We need glucose to operate. But the problem with insulin is when we become resistant to insulin or when insulin isn't working properly, we get higher and higher levels. And insulin actually has another effect, which can be causing more storage of fat. And that could actually get us in this cycle of metabolic syndrome. And okay, so I'm going into a little bit more detail than I planned here. And I will say that I do have a webinar this evening. If you want more in-depth discussion about these these details, you can join me on the webinar tonight. I want to talk about what we can do to heal, actually. So as I mentioned, most of the time we think about healing or we think about these really strict regimens that we have to follow. And a couple of things. Number one, we also are always looking for rapid results. And the thing is, many times these problems, this metabolic syndrome, weight gain, insulin resistance, all of these things have occurred over years and years. So to expect results in a short time is not realistic. And just because we don't get results in a short time does not mean it failed. That's the other thing that we always fall into. We think that if the results aren't, we can't see the results by next week or a month, that we've somehow failed. And I would like to turn that around and say that, it's a journey. And it takes a while to reverse the damage that's occurred over time. It doesn't mean you're failing. It just means a lot of times with time, it takes time for all of these processes to reverse. So things like inflammation, things like improving your gut health, decreasing your stress. All of these things take time. And when we let our body heal, when we let our body do what it needs to do, because I will say that the human body has an amazing capacity to heal. The human body actually wants to heal. The baseline is homeostasis, right? So our body is always trying to repair itself. So when we can actually help our body heal, we can actually win, right? When we support our body, we can actually win. So our metabolism isn't broken. It just needs the right tools, right? So what are some simple things we can do? So I talked about inflammation. I talked about our gut health. I talked about stress. And I will say that stress is one of the most important things. And often, um, you say stress and you're like, oh, I'm going to go to a spa and it'll all be done. But that actually is great. I do believe in spa days or ways to relax. But really the key is that daily check-in or throughout the day. How do you reset your nervous system? So one of the first things is actually, setting up those boundaries, and that's the truth. You want to get out of situations that if they are really harmful, you should get out of them. And if you are having difficulty managing stress, if it's causing anxiety, if it's interfering with your sleep, you definitely should seek additional help. But we're talking about day-to-day stress, things like mindfulness can be really powerful. And mindfulness can be anything from meditation, which we often think about when we talk about mindfulness, but it doesn't have to be meditation. It can be simply looking out the window at the trees. It can be taking a few deep breaths. It can be having a dance party. Whatever it is that takes you out of your current situation and just brings you more present. And that is so powerful. That is one of the most powerful things you can do for your health. In fact, as a physician, as a lifestyle medicine doctor, that's one of the first things I work with people on before even addressing nutrition or exercise or any of the other lifestyle pillars, which I'll talk about. Um, because stress, our body is stressed, it's really hard to heal. And so having those tools available and using them regularly can be one of the most powerful things, the first thing that you should start consider doing. So I said I was going to give a few tips. So that's one of them is find a way to check in throughout the day. So whether it is deep breathing, which is one of the things I love to teach is box breathing, which is where you breathe up kind of in a box. You breathe in for 4, you breathe out for 4. You breathe in for 4, you hold for 4, you breathe out for 4, and you hold for 4 again, and then you repeat that, 3 to 5 times. That is really literally resets your nervous system, stimulates your vagus nerves, and slows your heart rate, slows your breathing, is really powerful. Like I said, looking out the window, taking a short walk, anything that gives you that reset. So that's one thing to do. I talked about gut health. One of the most powerful things, we often hear low carb diet, high protein diet. For metabolism, that's actually probably the worst thing you can do. So that may give you short-term results. Yes, it may yield weight loss, but when we're talking about healing our body, as I mentioned, inflammation and gut health are really key. And the things that help with that are actually a high fiber rainbow-filled diet. So eating the rainbow of fruits and veggies. Always like to talk about that with all of my patients and families is eating the rainbow of fruits and veggies. So simply increasing a serving of fruits and vegetables, just one serving, increasing it by one serving. That's a great way to start. Where can you add more fiber in your diet? That's what I like to focus on. The other thing is exercise. So again, we often think that exercise has to be some strict regimen. You have to go to the gym, you have to follow some strict workout. But believe it or not, just moving regularly. So, where can you fit in if you can't walk for 30 minutes? Maybe you can walk for 10 minutes. If you can walk for 10 minutes 3 times a day, if you walk for 10 minutes in a day to start, that's great. But what about if you can squeeze in movement throughout your day? Maybe you can fit in a walk, to and park farther away. Maybe you can take the stairs. Maybe you can ride your bicycle to work. Wherever you can fit in more movement, that's going to be more helpful. And that also serves as another way to relieve stress. And sleep, I want to talk about because sleep is something that as busy professionals, we often think, oh, I'll catch up on sleep later. But you know what? You can't catch up on sleep, and our body keeps score. So when we're not getting that 7 to 9 hours of sleep, because that's actually what we should be getting, is 7 to 9 hours of sleep every night. When we don't get that, that increases our risk of, it increases our inflammation in our body, but it also increases our risk for metabolic syndrome. It stresses our body. It's another form of stress. So sleep is really, really important. That's 7 to 9 hours. So those are a few tips that you could take away. So just walking 10 minutes a day, adding another serving of fruits and vegetables, thinking about some way you can add mindfulness to your day. So these aren't the typical things. And people, when I say that, it seems like, oh, but that's not hard enough, because we think that it has to be hard. If there's no pain, there's no gain. But you know what? That's false. Our body is actually wired, I told you, for repair. But the other thing is that our brains seek pleasure, right? We're wired for pleasure. And when we are wired also to avoid pain. So when we associate wellness and health with pain, it actually makes it even harder. So when we talk about making these lifestyle changes, often it's a barrier, right? People think that, oh, it's such a big change. I mean, I've heard it before. My own brother has said to me, oh, I'll do it when I have time. But you know what? If you squeeze in these little bits right now, you don't need to make more time. You just need to add them to your daily routine. And that's really the key, is as you add these habits to your daily routine and you commit to doing them every day, then they become habit and you don't have to think about it. And you will see results, because again, remembering those results gradually add up over time. And that's the key. So instead of focusing on no pain, no gain, I like to focus on where can I find joy in my routine? And joy, if you've seen, I don't know if you follow me on social media here, but joy is central, and that's one of the essential components to what I teach my patients and what I coach people on, because joy is the reason, right? Joy is the secret to health, but it's also what we seek in life. And so by connecting our wellness with joy, our health with joy, they are intimately connected. And we should be seeking out joy in our wellness routine. So instead of no pain, no gain, think about, where can I add joy to my day? So when we do focus on joy, that actually rewires our brain to seek these things out. So when you associate it with joy, you're more likely to reinforce these habits. So that's a lot, but basically, those are the simple steps you can take. So adding those fruits and veggies, moving 10 minutes a day with the goal of moving up to 30 minutes a day, prioritizing your sleep, and focusing on joy. If you want to learn more, I am doing a webinar tonight at 6 p.m. to talk more about reversing type 2 diabetes, and a little bit more about metabolism and how our body works, and how you can actually start implementing these changes, right away. So thank you all for joining me. Feel free to comment. I can't see comments because I'm streaming this, but if you leave comments on this post, then I will reply back. And if you found this helpful, please feel free to share it with anybody that you think could benefit. Follow my feed on YouTube if you're on YouTube, or LinkedIn if you're on LinkedIn. And you can go to the link in my bio for my website, Healthy Living with Dr. Jen, and book a discovery call if you are working on health goals and you would like some support. Okay, thank you so much for watching.